Sunday Roundtable is ready to go this morning. Joining us are Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you guys.
All right, Governor Maura Healey will deliver her State of the Commonwealth address this week. It comes as the emergency shelter crisis continues to haunt her administration. She's asking for another $500 million in funding for it after we've already put well over $1 billion into it. She did this as we learned about the arrest of an undocumented migrant who had an assault rifle, 10 pounds of fentanyl, that's probably $1 million or north of that, at a shelter, a state-run shelter in Revere. We also learned that hundreds of other crimes have been committed at these shelters. The Mass GOP is accusing the Healey administration of being less than transparent. What does the governor have to say about this in her speech on Thursday, Marianne?
Maura Healey's basically running an immigration startup, which Republicans in Congress, the federal government, and Donald Trump have refused to do. So she needs to explain to everyone everything she's had to do because of others abdicating their responsibilities to immigrants. So she needs to lay that all out and then show how she's going to go forward. Obviously, the legislature is going to get involved now. There are measures that she and they probably want to take, but you need to show people what you've done and why you've had to do it and how the path forward looks.
So the legislature seems a little lukewarm on this proposal. Does she need to lay out a clear end game?
I think she does need to lay out the steps, because when you read what Mariano and others said, they're not opposed to it, but they want conditions to it. And I think that's where the reform happens.
Do we need a timeline on this, Rob, a clear-cut timeline?
Well, it's a political disaster right now for the governor, no question about it. But what nobody's talking about is the core policy here. The right to shelter law in Massachusetts is misguided. Other states don't have it. That's why we have at least 4 times the number of immigrants, illegal migrants as other states. And it looks like right now we are in a situation where we're going to permanently house them, pay for their food, pay for their benefits, and nobody sees an end.
Let's talk about item 2. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu showing that she's willing to rip the Band-Aid, the political Band-Aid anyway, off, even in an election year. Remember, this is the year that she is up for re-election. They announced the closure of some schools and the closing of others. City Councilor Ed Flynn called the closing of Exile High School in his South Boston district a tragic loss. He may yet challenge Wu. That is unannounced, unrevealed at this time. Has the mayor, Marianne, just made it easier for him by doing this?
Well, first, talking about having to deal with long neglected problems. Michelle Wu is finally tackling the Boston Public Schools. And this is her second round in terms of coming up with schools that need to close and schools that need to be improved. Give her credit for that. I mean, she is fighting to make schools better. She's trying to get students more resources, better schools, including athletic facilities, which we talked about last week.
Right.
That's really important. Now, Ed Flynn seems to have a lot of complaints and no solutions. So he's only going to run if Josh Kraft doesn't run. But if he's got a complaint, now's the time to lay out your solutions to this problem, because you haven't.
Rob, what's your read?
Well, my question is, will either of them run? So Michelle Wu announced a year before the primary, when she ran and won successfully against the incumbent acting mayor, Kim Janey. These guys still aren't in the race. So are they going to do it? They have some issues to run on, but they have to step up and spend the money to run.
And they may not.
And the mayor said on this program on OTR that she is going to run.
Yeah, there's no question, but Rob's got the right
But Rob's
point
got
here.
the, yeah.
It's whether Josh or Flynn will do
We're
it.
4 months past the time frame when she announced.
It's getting later.
I mean, they could still do it, but it takes a lot.
Yeah.
All right, we're just over a week away from the second inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. We certainly got a preview of what Trump 2.0, the next 4 years, could look like at Mar-a-Lago a couple of days ago. A rambling, very long news conference, taking over the Panama Canal, annexing Greenland, maybe Canada, all tossed out there. And then the media seemed to buy right in. All the questions, many of the questions from the reporters in the room about those topics. Very little talk about all the economic issues that he centered his campaign on. Rob, is the press falling here for this top-level trolling? I mean, there were a dozen articles in the New York Times about Greenland and Canada in the last week.
They are. I mean, Trump loves it. The media tried to take him out more than a few times over the past years, and he got reelected as president, or elected again as president. He feels like he has taken a bath in liquid Teflon. He can do no wrong. He's a destabilizer. He wants to keep them guessing. He doesn't care what he says up there.
Marianne?
The media has learned nothing, and they've only become a vessel for his propaganda and conditioning the American people to think this is normal. So here's what the media should do. There are 4 points they should ask every single time. First, how does this benefit Trump politically or financially? 2, how does this benefit Elon Musk and the other billionaires around him? 3, how does this benefit Vladimir Putin? Greenland, everyone's laughing off Greenland. Greenland, look at a map, okay? And then last but not least, how does this benefit when the nominees he's put up, Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy Jr., if you look at them as someone who's trying to harm people, harm us, harm the United States on national defense, health, the economy and all that, you've got all your answers.
But what about holding his feet to the fire on inflation and, the price of groceries? And because that was nowhere to be found.
He's already backed off of that. He goes, well, once the prices are high, they're hard to bring down. I mean, come on.
All right, so I want to continue the conversation about the president-elect because he also had some interesting things to say about wind energy. He believes the whales in the Massachusetts waters are being killed by turbines. Listen.
The Massachusetts area with the whales, where they had 2 whales wash ashore in, I think, a 17-year period, and now they had 14 this season. The windmills are driving the whales crazy.
Marine experts say that's not true, by the way. But, Rob, does it suggest that the president has Massachusetts and its progressive policies in his sights?
Trump's wrong, but he's also right. I mean, look at Vineyard Wind. He's talking about the whales, but Vineyard Wind, a massive construction project in the middle of the ocean. Pieces are still washing up on the beaches of Nantucket, splinters of fiberglass. I mean, these are massive 10-story buildings out in the ocean. We don't think that that's hurting sea life. It's definitely hurting sea life. So I think Trump has outed the fact that these major sea development projects cloaked in green are as bad as oil drilling.
I rest my case. I mean, the reality here is if Trump does have Massachusetts in his sights, and here's what's going to happen. Massachusetts, Boston, somewhere, will be one of the first entities to have a raid on undocumented immigrants. And it will be a high-profile show going into businesses, going into schools, going into homes, and ripping families apart. That's where we're in his sights. And he's putting on the show, and we're going to be the stage.
Were we talking about windmills?
No, the point was this Massachusetts in his sights. Yes, it is.
I got you.
We continue on the roundtable right after this.